Who knows? Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. You know, we've talked about this before, when problems come up like a fever, and how, you know, where does that bacteria incubate? Sometimes when you just think of the body as a mass, some of these problems appear to be mysterious, but when it comes to where in the heck is the bacteria incubating, well, it's obvious that it can't incubate that well in the bloodstream, the tissue, or any particular area through the body except for the intestinal tract, right? And the colon is usually the ideal incubator because that's kind of the trash can for the whole body. And so when there is a restriction of nerve flow from the lower back to the colon, closing it down, that creates the ideal incubator. And when it starts incubating too much of the unfriendly bacteria, that's when we start getting the fevers. And so just knowing that anytime a person has a fever, all you have to do is sponge them down and give them a bottle of prune juice or a couple tablespoons of magnesium, because there's no reason to panic and wonder if they're going to die or anything, because it's almost always the trash can is stagnated. And of course, that's kind of the whole theme of all disease. When you think about the substance that disease is made out of, that's why they say disease begins in the colon. In other words, a better way of terming it is disease begins in the trash can. Okay, so if we take the trash out regularly, there isn't so much reason to be concerned. With what I wanted to talk about tonight, a lot of the problems like ulcers that are caused by H. pylori, and another big one that has been very popular for years is the candida issue, which, you know, avoiding certain breads and things like this, those are the activators. You know, when a person has a serious systemic condition of candida, it's there. And yes, it helps to make you more comfortable if you don't, you know, take a stick and tease the snake. Well, the real issue is, why is it so ever present in the body and so easily agitated? And the popularity of a lot of the conversations that I know all of you have been picking up on through the internet and everything is about the little hiding incubator that they refer to as the biofilm, that is really the problem. And I think that most people have a biofilm, and the most common place for that should be in the intestinal tract. In fact, they've discovered that that is the reason why it's so difficult sometimes to clear out H. pylori, because H. pylori has built their little fort out of this mucus and toxic waste, and they're able to hide in there, not only hide, but reproduce like crazy and send out their little troops throughout the body. And so the actual substance of the biofilm is the real enemy, because you can't get to the enemy until you get the fort walls down. And so, you know, back, I imagine it's been at least 100 years ago now that Arnold Ehret was doing his experiments with the mucusless diet system. And what he did was he figured out that there's mucus in most foods, and he shifted to an all mucusless diet. And he found that once you get rid of all the mucus in the body, it simplifies all kinds of things. You know, when a person has a problem and it involves mucus coming from the lungs and mucus being released from the stool, it appears as though, oh my gosh, I have a mucus problem. How do we solve a mucus problem? Well, if we're continually eating mucus in our foods, there's the problem. We consume mucus. Now, of course,
what foods are mucus? I mean,
what foods contain mucus?
Yeah.
Dairy.
Most foods contain mucus.
I've heard of mucus forming, like foods that contributed to your body
Okay,
producing mucus.
let's separate the two. Let's talk about how we get the stuff in here first of all, and then we'll talk about how the same goop is a protective mechanism as well. Okay? I don't know how the body would protect itself like that if we don't put the goop into the body, but we'll talk about both anyway. Okay, all grains pretty well have, let's rename it to goop. Goop is a good name for it, and that way it puts it in proper perspectives. You ever eat oatmeal and it look a little goopy? Dairy? Okay. Now, of course, you get to the other end of the scale and you have grapes and grapes.
Grapes
cause
mucus in
mucus?
grapes.
No, that's the
That's
The
the other
other end of the scale.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh,
Got it.
you.
Okay, we're going to throw those chairs out of the back row there. It's impairing hearing for sure. Then you think about vegetable juices, zero mucus. Okay, that is the diet that Arnold Ehret was following, is the mucusless diet. Fruits, vegetables, non-mucus foods.
So is it oatmeal bad?
No,
No.
no, we're just talking about where the goop is hiding. It's a good food, but it does have goop. Okay?
So oatmeal causes mucus.
Yes, it contains mucus.
Contains mucus.
Yes,
Does banana?
yes, it is sticky. Anything sticky or goopy has mucus. Now, mucus isn't bad, okay? Mucus isn't really bad, but if you are overwhelmed, if you have too much, or if it's of the types of foods and your body's stagnation to where you're getting too much mucus, or you get a case of, now let's shift to the protection side of it. Because when you eat certain foods that make you get mucusy, it's not necessarily the food containing the mucus, that is the body's protection mechanism. Now, in research that they've done on enzymes, they found that young children, very young children and babies especially, a baby, you take the most beautiful organic vegetables and you steam them and feed that to a baby, and the baby's stomach will throw a mucus lining out to protect itself, indicating the absolute ideal for the human body is a raw food diet. Okay, because here's this young baby that hasn't eaten any junk food. Of course, it has protective mucus that it got from the mother's milk. Obviously, that wasn't a bad mucus. And as soon as the baby eats the steamed vegetables, the intestinal tract puts out a coating of mucus to protect itself from the cooked food. Okay? Just one more point while we're talking about babies. A lot of moms wonder why babies spit vegetables out. They think that babies have this aversion of vegetables from day one. But a lot of moms forget the fact that that little tongue is so delicate that just even a little bit of salt will burn it. And you don't really realize how potent salt really is unless you go several months with zero salt and then you eat some salt. It'll actually burn your tongue. But as adults, we're so accustomed to using salt. Of course, we want it to taste nice for the baby, so you put a little salt in there, and the baby's not spitting the vegetable out, the baby's spitting the salt out because of the harshness. Okay? Sideline has nothing to do with the class tonight.
Good one.
Just in case you guys want to start over and start having babies again.
Sure.
Whoa, everybody just ran out of class. Okay, so very clear distinction between the two mucuses. Okay, a lot of times, obviously, an allergic reaction will also cause a mucusing effect to defend the body from whatever substance that is being consumed. Anyway, as we look at bacteria within the body, you talk about the friendly bacteria and the unfriendly bacteria, one common thought is, well, that would be great if we could just clear the body of all unfriendly bacteria, then we'd be a whole lot better off. But the bad bacteria has a good purpose. It's a great digestive substance that helps break the residue of our food down. And that is the real benefit of the friendly bacteria, is to neutralize the toxicity of what the unfriendly bacteria outputs. Everybody got that one? In other words, what goes in the front end of any animal or bacteria is a whole lot nicer than what comes out the other end. And even bacteria as little organisms, they eat and they poop. So in other words, our friendly bacteria is to neutralize the toxicity of unfriendly bacteria poop, because that fluid is pulled into our bloodstream 24 hours a day, and that is what keeps us from getting poisoned, is the friendly bacteria neutralizing that poop tea. Okay? Now, a lot of the problems, like the H. pylori, Candida, and GERD, and a lot of these problems that were supposedly mysterious, would be found to be in alignment with that biofilm and the problems that it causes. And who are the little culprits behind the construction? It's the little bacteria that colonize. Now remember, colonization is a very primitive technique of survival. And that's what they're doing. They're just going back to old programming for survival. They're colonizing, they're grouping together, and they're building a fort. You know, that intelligence for doing that, we got that from somewhere. Even bacteria is smart enough to know that that's the best way to survive, is to build a fort, protect yourself, and then multiply inside the fort. And that's the reason why you can do a treatment to kill down the bacteria, especially when you use an antibiotic. It'll kill down the troops out in the field, and it will strengthen the colony. And so as the colony reproduces and sends more troops out into the field, these guys are a little bit tougher. And they get tougher and tougher every time you do another round of antibiotics, until pretty soon you've got antibiotic-resistant bacteria as troops going out. Those guys are really tough to fight. That's the reason why it's a futile procedure to fight bacterial problems with antibiotics. Now that we understand, okay, here's the key to it. Break the walls of the fort down and annihilate the little soldiers inside the fort. Get rid of the colony in the fort. And again, yes?
Don't the bacteria also work with other forms? So bacteria A is going to work with virus B, and there's other, and they kind of work together with other forms as well?
To accomplish.
It's not just one form of bacteria doing a little fort here and another one doing the fort over there. They communicate with each other and work together, do they not?
They probably do.
So,
And to what end? What is their focus?
to survive. And
To
so
survive.
They survive better by working all together. They're cooperative rather than antagonistic to one another.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, let's keep in mind, though, that this is not an intelligent force that is trying to destroy us. The primary is what's for supper and how do we survive. But there is a force that if we don't clean up the internal environment, then it is an enemy, it is an intelligence that is hell-bent on destroying us and surviving, and that is cancer. Cancer is a different intelligence. Cancer is our cells, our very own intelligent cells that mutate and colonize, and they are hell-bent to take us out so that they survive. There's a huge difference between pre-cancer and cancer. Once the tumor is formed, you have a colony there that is going to do anything and everything to intelligently take the body out, not knowing that it's going to die when the body dies. And it will do anything to take us out. So it is a life and death battle.
consider that the big C cancer is a corporate interest of man's evil farming us, meaning many years ago.
Well, let's stay inside the body.
Yeah.
We'll get into politics another time.
Well, no, but there wasn't cancer 50 years ago like there is now. They've made sure that cancer flourishes with all that's around.
That's for sure. I agree 100%. I just want to keep the conversation as close into the body as we can.
When is the four-stage cancer, is it curable?
Sorry. Curable. What is a cure?
I mean,
No, the question is great. I just want to clarify. What is a cure?
cure is not having cancer.
A cure is the alleviation of the end resulting effect while all levels of cause are firmly still in place. So a cure will always be a temporary condition. A cure will always be a temporary condition because it obliterates the principle of cause and effect. It's the only area of our lives where the principle of cause and effect is flushed down the toilet. Okay? In every area of our lives, if we see an effect, life trains us very well that if we don't discover the cause and correct the cause, the effect will either remain or return. And so a cure will never be a worthwhile solution. So the only way that we can bring any condition within our bodies to actual solution is to first of all take responsibility for being the creator of that condition through our self-destructive lifestyle habits, alter the reason why we developed it, and reverse the emotional, physical, chemistry, all levels of why that end resulting effect is there so that we don't keep recreating it. When we're talking about bacterial problems, this is the focal point of the class tonight, is getting rid of the biofilm as being the source of incubation for why things get out of hand and, like you're saying, the little guys all communicating together and plotting a further level of their survival that undermines our well-being. Okay? Now, another thing, we keep thinking from the point of view of the virus and the bacteria to get a greater understanding of what's really going on so that we don't create imaginary authority or greatness of these little guys. It's kind of like the issue that David brought up about the real cause society-wise for why cancer is so prevalent and why we perceive it as being so dangerous. Cancer cells are actually very weak cells. They, and bacteria, viruses, they're all really weak cells. That's the way that the MMS and the body water purifier, the chlorine dioxide, that's how that works, is it picks on the weaklings. It goes through the body. See, oxygen is a bully. Oxygen will pick on anybody that he can. That's the reason why we have to have antioxidants, or oxygen is going to punch up our own cells. So we have antioxidants to protect our cells from oxygen, because it's a bully. The MMS, or the chlorine dioxide, he slips through the body and he picks on the weaklings. And that's the reason why when he comes in contact with viruses, bacteria, and cancer cells, the chlorine dioxide pulls the electrons from the molecule and collapses it. That's how the MMS, or body water purifier, can kill viruses, bacteria, cancer cells, or any of these weak cells. And to help that, of course, we need to always think, okay, how can we create an internal environment that is better for me and worse for the cleanup committee? See, all the viruses, bacteria, cancer cells, and everything, they're actually part of nature's cleanup committee. Even cancer cells, when they convert, when they mutate, they become a parasite. They love the same things parasites love. Low oxygen, low energy, and rotting food waste. And so what we've got to do is think, okay, now everything that I'm doing, is it enhancing my well-being or the well-being of the cleanup committee? And if we look at it from that point of view and keep evolving, which, you know, it's interesting as we evolve our lifestyle habits, clean up our diet, and get our exercise going, and all these techniques that would enhance the health of the body, we're slowly moving from the deep end of the self-destructive pool to the shallow end. And we're becoming less and less self-destructive as well. It goes both directions. As we clean up our habits, we find ourselves to be less self-destructive as well. That makes sense? There's a parallel there. The more good we do, the less destructive we are. Because if, you know, unfortunately to be human is to be self-destructive. But with effort, we can become much less self-destructive. We have to admit, all the while we're on the planet, we're going to be self-destructive. We're programmed that way. But the body is a beautiful barometer that tells us at what level of self-destruct we are. You know, I haven't, you know, in fact, all of us know people that are doing everything. They take all the vitamins, they're doing everything that comes along, and they still have more symptoms than all these treatments and supplements can overcome. That is how powerful of creators we are. See, we create continually. That's one thing that we can't stop doing. We cannot stop creating. And there's two directions that we create. And according to the subject matter that we focus on, whether it generates joy or fear, we're still creating. And if it activates into the direction of fear, we're going to create more self-destruct. And that's the reason why you'll run into people that seem to be just so determined to do everything to build their health, but then they always have the same 25 problems. Because as a creator, they're breaking it much faster than even all these techniques can repair, which proves the most important principle that we all need to focus on, and that is, as creators, our body is the barometer that tells us at what level of self-destruct we are, not what the quality of our supplements are. Supplements and food and everything else, they're just tools. Our bodies, in a level of self-destruct, our bodies can take the highest quality food and supplements and still destroy tissue cells and break the body down, because we are cause and the body is the effect. And it will always be that way. Our creativity precedes the crystallized form of the body. This is the reason why I keep repeating that the body literally is the crystallized form of our emotional habits. How we feel emotionally is always expressed in the physical body. How we eat is always expressed in the physical body as an alignment with how we feel. How we feel is everything. Was your hand coming up for a reason?
No, I wanted to ask you about that MMS.
Yes.
Breaking down the fort you were talking about.
Yes.
Will that MMS do that? I mean,
No.
It won't do that, huh?
No, but we got bazookas and other things we're gonna talk about. And then once we knock that wall down, then the MMS can kick their butts.
All right, and then is bathing in it? I met a guy down in Alabama that's bathing in it. He had stage 4 cancer, and he don't have cancer anymore.
Bathing in MMS?
Yeah, he put it in a tub of water, and put it much stronger than you could drink it.
I don't see any reason why that wouldn't work, because that would be a whole lot more comfortable than driving it with DMSO.
Yeah.
That'd be a great idea. Did you hear about that one before, David?
Bathing in it?
Bathing in it. Sounds like a good
You make
idea.
a hot water tub, and then you put a heavy concentrate
Oh, yeah.
together,
Oh, yeah.
and because you don't have to drink it, so.
Sounds good to me, yes.
Well, yes, it does. But the key aspect is anymore. this person tried to cure it. If they don't build the foundation and the principles you speak of, it's gonna be back.
Right. That is a cure.
Well, CBD is also something that I'd like to know more about. I watched 3 videos on that on incurable conditions.
We
They don't have it.
will probably have a class on CBD, and everybody gets CBD chocolate at that class.
All right.
What does CBD stand for?
Cannabinoids.
Yes, you were talking about the mucus-less foods.
And you mentioned Arnold something.
Arnold Ehret.
Thank you.
In fact, even at Mother's, even though the book is probably even 100 years old, Mother's usually carries it.
What's the book?
Mucusless Diet by Arnold Ehret. Yes.
If I could, this gentleman asked a good question, what is CBD? And I said cannabinoids. The cannabinoids are particularly prevalent in the cannabis family, which other people may call hemp on occasion or marijuana. But there is between 167 and, what was it, 800?
Yeah.
831 cannabinoid or cannabinoid receptors. You can find it in echinacea, but the real deal, without going too far off, because we're going to be talking about this in the future so people can be excited, is that...
Nobody will come to class if you give it all out tonight.
I'm not going to put it all out. It's just that...
Basically hemp oil. Close enough?
Concentrated, very concentrated.
Very concentrated hemp oil.
Okay.
And what is it supposed
And
to do?
according to what I saw, they say that our body actually makes a little bit of this. It's
Right.
a natural compound within ourselves. And as we get a little bit older, then that ability to make that, plus you don't have the raw ingredients to make it and all the other, so they're,
Kind of like hormones and all the other stuff.
yeah, everything
What's
else
its role
goes
in the
away.
body? The hemp oil.
Anti-inflammatory,
Okay.
anti-cancer, all kinds of stuff.
With the question, what does it do?
What's its purpose?
Seriously, and this sounds extremely cocky, out of anything I've ever seen, the real question is much easier asked, what doesn't it do? It almost, your mouth drops open when you start to hear every single thing it can do.
Is that a good commercial for the CBD class?
Anybody get that class?
And so, remember, you get a chocolate that contains CBD and
Chaga.
Arctic chaga.
Even better.
I was just gonna say, when are you gonna start carrying CBD oil?
Real soon. Real soon.
Except,
Actually, right now, all I'm doing with it is making a chocolate. We're going to have 4 chocolates. One will be the standard chocolate with the whole cane sugar. The second one will be chaga chocolate with the Arctic chaga and the whole cane sugar. The third one will be chaga chocolate with erythritol, which has it's zero on the glycemic index, and it's a vasodilator to where you can savor the chocolate in your mouth, and the chaga goes right into your bloodstream. And we'll have to have a chaga class on the same time that we have the CBD class. Then the fourth one will be chaga CBD chocolate with the erythritol, so that again, as you're savoring the chocolate in your mouth, the CBD oil and the chaga goes right into the bloodstream. Yes, Dave?
however, in trying to dance between the raindrops of this ever-changing political, legal arena, it may be just called hemp or hemp oil to protect all parties, etc., and be compliant.
And two, what we're doing right now is we have a source that is only the stock because of legalities and everything, so that it's being imported from England and it's just expressed from the hemp stock as they're making hemp ropes. So it's completely legal, but it's still as potent as any of them. So it's good stuff.
It's processed without the high.
Yes.
There's no THC.
There's no THC yet.
Well, it's less than 0.0.
It's so low you're not going to get high on
It's within
chocolate.
the compliance.
You get higher on the chocolate than.
Yeah.
Yes,
Some
sir.
people are saying that the pill with CBD and a slight amount of THC is actually really very good for the body and the brain.
Yeah, how about if we put all CBD off to CBD class? Fair enough.
All right.
Because you don't get chocolate tonight no matter, no.
None of your chocolates makes mucus, right? There's no mucus forming stuff in there.
What's that?
Mucus in your chocolate. No, there's no mucus forming materials.
There might be a little bit because of the sprouted seeds and nuts. That would be a natural mucus and it'd be good for you. All right, everybody through a CBD for tonight. Let's go on. Let's get back to the
Get back to
mucus.
biofilm.
Mucus in the belly. Okay, one of what we got to do is looking at the biofilm and what it's made of. It's not only mucus, but these little critters. Anybody ever see a rat's nest in an old barn?
Yes?
It's a stinky, nasty thing made up of anything and everything that they can get their hands on. That's kind of like what a biofilm is like. These little critters use whatever floats past to stick it onto this mass to construct their little fort. Now, but the base of it is still mucus. And what is a really powerful mucus-cutting substance that we normally eat?
Lemons?
Lemons. Okay? So, lemon will work at cutting away the mucus, because this is what we got to do, is start breaking that mucus down. Now, of course, sugar will feed bacteria. And so what I was going to, in fact, I'm going to give you instructions and a basic program that will accomplish this. But there's two of us that are still in the proving stage to make sure that it isn't too strong, because it is a very powerful program to put together. And by this afternoon, I was questioning if maybe it might be too strong. But I think one of the main issues, we put together another formula of the Biofilm specifically for this program to not only cut the mucus, break the fort down, but annihilate the bacteria. And I don't usually take any form of laxative, either the fiber regulator or the ozonated magnesium, and we put this Biofilm together so that it would work on most people. So each tablespoon of the Biofilm has a half a teaspoon of ozonated magnesium, and I know that my entire intestinal tract is clear right now. I think we need to try another couple of guinea pigs to check it out before I say, okay, let's go ahead and do this. But anyway, the mastic gum is another tool that we've put into the Biofilm. This is just a special formula of Biofilm, specifically for breaking down the biofilm and removing this problem that is the base of your candida and all these other problems. And so you take the Biofilm with the Nutridophilus, ozonated magnesium, and the mastic gum, you blend that into lemonade that you make with a combination of xylitol. Now remember, xylitol, they're putting it into toothpaste right now. For what reason?
Antibacterial.
Antibacterial, and it tastes sweet. It's a sweetness that actually kills bacteria. And so to buffer the concentration and the volume of the xylitol, just for the experiment that I was playing with today that we were making the lemonade out of, I used 2/3 xylitol and 1/3 erythritol. They're both alcohol sugars, both very low glycemic, but now the sugar that sweetens the lemonade is actually antibacterial. So it's another tool in the same arsenal that is going after the bacteria. So you have the lemon that is cutting the mucus, you have the xylitol ready to kick bacteria butt, you have mastic gum which has been proven. It's a resin from an evergreen shrub from Greece, and they found that mastic gum is probably the most powerful tool that they've worked with against H. pylori. It will stimulate healing in the intestinal tract, and it has properties that will reverse GERD, inflammation of the intestinal tract, a dozen different intestinal problems. It's probably one of the best things for healing and soothing the intestinal tract and reversing these problems. Now keep in mind also, in the Baltone, you've got the slippery elm, you've got the aloe vera gel powder, all soothing and stimulating for the healing, stimulating healing for the intestinal tract. Now, you take that drink. How many of you have done the Master Cleanse before? Okay. This is basically like an intense Master Cleanse because it's a little bit different formula. Another thing that I'm watching for is to see, I believe that with such a low caloric intake as this will be, because with the Master Cleanse, you're getting your calories from the maple syrup. Well, with xylitol and erythritol, you're not getting those calories, right? So what is your body going to do? You've got practically no calories. If you're hypoglycemia, you might pass out. We're watching for that one. But what is your body programmed to do? What should it do at a time like that?
Hold on to weight. Or lose
It
weight.
should go to
It
sort of
should,
burn something else, but
Yes.
fat.
Or ask that.
yes, it should shift into producing ketones and start burning fat.
So that would be a pre ketone program, right?
I think so.
Sounds like.
Yeah, because the caloric intake is so low, because the Baltone giving bulk is satisfying. You feel like you've eaten a meal right after you finish with that. Very low glycemic content. So I think that it will stabilize your blood sugar by starting to produce ketones and supporting the body in the direction that we've been talking about anyway. Then, 3 times a day, you take 3 capsules of the Chelation, which has the main ingredient in that is an extract of the silkworm, which has also been found to be the most powerful tool that anybody has used so far to break down biofilm.
Does Sarah have to use that?
Mhm.
So what does the regimentation look like? How many days, how many weeks, or whatever?
I'm thinking 6 days, and it's just like a 6-day Master Cleanse, enhanced with the Baltone and using only the Chelation. But if it isn't too powerful, it will do the job in 6 days. Especially after what I've seen happen today in 1 day. 6 days, the job will be done.
So the Chelation
Chelation.
is accomplishing the same thing that the lemon juice is?
Uh-huh.
So
But who knows how long you'd have to do that at a higher expense of buying all those enzymes. But you get the lemonade and the Baltone and you do all these things together and you slip the Chelation in between and you're clear.
And the Chelation is what you take 3 times a day. You said it's like a capsule form?
Yes. And 2, it, besides what it will do to the biofilm, the main use of this before, it would be considered a systemic enzyme. And what they used to use it for mostly is either eating the shell of a cancer tumor so that the immune system could get to the individual cancer cells, or if you had any fibroid type problems, fibrous breast issues or fiber buildup anywhere in the body. It was designed to be taken between meals so that rather than being wasted by digesting whatever you had in your stomach, it would go into the bloodstream, clean the blood, and clean the tissue. That's why they refer to it as a systemic enzyme. So you take that along with this drink as many times as you feel that you are hungry. 6 times, 8 times, whatever you want or need. There's no limit to it because all it's doing is more scrubbing, cleaning, clearing.
So, no food during this period of time?
Don't need food.
No essential
Let's do it.
We're toying with, that's the reason why I'm not saying, okay, here's the program, run out and do it. Because we're toying with the possibility of maybe taking the 3 essentialites through the day. But I would like to just stay with just this program, the simplified version, like the Master Cleanse, to see if my body will shift into producing the ketones and keep the blood sugar up and everything.
So, you have the nice benefit of 5 feet away a bathroom. Are you going to the bathroom like I'm at work where the bathroom is a million miles away and on a different floor?
Definitely want to start this on a Friday evening or whenever you'd have a couple days off.
Yeah.
But I've only
Because
got 2 days off out of the 6, so, some of this is gonna happen at work if I did this, so,
the first day will definitely, because it's like, the
First
first cleanse that I ever did was Dr. John Ray Christopher's apple juice cleanse way back when, and I was doing that during work, and it was tough like that because you start out the morning. Now this was a program that he developed probably 50 years ago, and this was 40 some years ago that I did that. You'd start out in the morning with a big glass, 16 ounces of prune juice, definitely get things going. And then you follow that every half hour with a big glass of apple juice and water in between. And yeah, you're definitely running all day long. That was the first time that I released a mucus lining from the intestinal tract. And I was 23 at the time. And yeah, it was a little tough to work and do that. It is possible, but it depends on how well you can control diarrhea. But I can remember being out about a block from the toilet and feeling like, wow, this is a little bit tough. Anyway, you want to start it on a day where the first day, that's what I was getting at, is the first day you're going to be releasing the volume out of the intestinal tract. Second day, the largest amount of volume is cleared.
Okay.
And so it won't be so urgent.
Okay, so on day 3, 4, 5, and 6, should be no problem.
It should be
Okay,
a routine.
okay,
Should be routine.
Okay.
Yes.
Do heavy metals need to be taken care first, or do they complicate, or nothing?
Again, with all forms of total body detoxification, the starting point and the highest priority is clearing the intestinal tract. Number 2, consistently clearing the blood and the lymph out through the skin. Then as vitality increases, the body is always doing everything that it can to remove the metals. So they'll always be with enough vitality at the tissue level. The metals will be found consistently in the blood and the lymph. And so by doing at least 2 detox baths a week, you'll keep pulling those metals out.
Thank you.
Now, of course, it never hurts anybody to use more cilantro in your diet, and that will bind with the mercury. Mercury is the one that is really bad news for all of us because we've purposely been exposed to so much mercury all of our lives, especially with mercury fillings and now with vaccinations and everything. And so it would just be a good idea to increase the intake of cilantro to bind with the mercury and help release it from the brain and the nervous system.
Last question, what's good for lead?
Lead. To actually release it from tissue? Do you have an answer for that?
Well, maybe not for that. I had a secondary answer.
All the metals, remember that all the metals, as you increase vitality, your body will mobilize them. And then the consistency of doing the detox bath will pull them out. And even if you look at them under the microscope and they look like great big chunks of scrap metal, they're still in liquid form, and the ginger will open the pores and pull them right on out. So that's the safest thing, is just
Bath.
exercise and the detox baths.
Well, you've got chelation therapy, rectal, EDTA.
Yeah.
I recommend the magnesium base versus the detoxamine one. The magnesium one is wonderful. And then Dr. Crochet, I'm not trying to give a plug for somebody else, but who worked on Anthony Robbins because of his mercury problem, not so much lead. They have a product called IMD that really is a great chelating.
If a person is consistent with the body chemistry support, they shouldn't get into trouble to where you have an excess. But if you do have an excess, the chelations, suppositories, or whatever is a lot cheaper than the IVs. Did you have a question?
And it was basically, what about EDTA in terms of
Yeah.
taking it or?
Yeah, that's a good tissue release. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, appreciate it.
Tell Dr. Jolly hi for us.
Will do.
All right, good.
What was a good tissue release?
The EDTA.
Suppositories, you were saying?
What's that?
Suppositories?
Yeah, they have the EDTA in the suppository.
Anything against the intravenous, or is
Just
it
expands.
money? Yes.
You mentioned that the detox is okay for hypoglycemic. Would you yeah? Would you recommend if because there's no food involved, like doing essential light or something?
Okay, in the instructions that I am handing out, I do say that if you're doing this process and you feel a little bit lightheaded and you feel like you need something, try and stick to vegetable juice or a broth, or like the essential light.
Okay.
Yeah. Because, no matter what you're doing, you always want to stay in your emotional comfort zone. You don't have to get uncomfortable, because this isn't a true war. It may be a war against the little bacteria, but it's not like they just moved in yesterday.
Back to the EDTA, is that something you can buy at like Mother's or in the capsule?
Now you can go online and look for
Okay.
the suppositories in different forms.
Okay.
Otherwise, if you do the IVs, you'd have to go to a doctor to do that. Again, your body can reverse all of this. Everything that doesn't get cleared out by that 6-day process, your body, by increasing vitality and keeping those doors and windows open, your body can normalize itself. It's already doing everything that it can to clear all of this. It just needs us to give it a little boost and to stop doing some of the things that is busy inhibiting the body from accomplishing what it's set out to do. Okay?
Going back to what you said about cilantro, would you blend that in that lemonade, or when would you have
Just on a daily basis, make a tea out of it or whatever. Like you could take cilantro and maybe mint or something, and
Throw it in a smoothie?
what's that?
Throw it in a smoothie? Yeah. Blend
Throw it in a
it.
smoothie, or when you're juicing other vegetables, throw some into there. Making soups, doesn't matter. Like a tincture is an alcohol draw of it, and you can buy tinctures, but I would say that if you just made a tea out of it, it would work at least as well and be a lot easier, and you don't have to deal with the alcoholic draw. Okay?
You have the xylitol and the erythritol here?
No,
Oh, okay.
mothers are in
Okay.
a health food store. Yes.
Does the status of the gallbladder matter in this, fighting the biofilms?
No.
It's just, that's a separate.
Yeah,
But
that's
you don't have to make sure the gallbladder is clear
No,
before
but
you do
this flush is the most ideal preparation for a gallbladder flush you could ever figure, because you're getting that intestinal tract so clear. Now keep in mind that the amount of time that it takes for cholesterol balls to transit after you've taken the oil until they come out the back door and you see them, that amount of time shows the transition time of the intestinal tract. So after you do this 6-day cleanse, that transit time will be much quicker. Because you're going to get rid of all the blockages and stuff that is in the way and a lot of stickiness. And I believe that by the end of the 6 days, if there is any mucus lining in the colon or the intestinal tract, it should slip during this time with that much lemonade and the Baltone being with it. Okay? Yes, sir.
Then we can all say we work for the Transit Authority.
Yes. With enthusiasm. Okay, I'm going to turn this off.